What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of AoS Trashpandas? Maybe, kinda? I'm not sure. Tonight...
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have trash pandas in Australia. We have what we call bin chickens, which are the ibis.
Oh.
So it's emotionally the same animal, just with feathers and a horrifyingly long beak.
Okay. Do you know the story of why we call this AoS Trashpandas?
No, but I would love to.
Okay, so we've had various issues of technical difficulties throughout, and it was never meant to be this posh kind of upper class show. Mm-hmm. It's meant, and so early on, I think it was after Carson joined, I said, like, what I want people to picture in their heads when they watch this is you hear some like rumbling outside your back door at night, and you go out there and you turn on your flashlight, and revealed is a raccoon going through your garbage and eating it, and then kind of looking up into the light and kind of going, at you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a wild,
It's that, except you go into your backyard and it's actually like yourself or Carson just assembling some miniatures at 4 a.m. in the morning, in the dark, being like,
exactly.
I need light to do this.
1/6, half a dozen of the other, a wild
mold
raccoon.
Lines are just braille for war dolly players. That's fine. Yeah.
I am crazy about my mold lines. I actually take umbrage at that. Just kidding.
A very beautiful man who taught me so many things about painting. He was an incredible painter, but he used to just be like, mold lines are texture. And I was like, that's not.
That's not.
For someone who is as talented as you are, it's awful that that's your attitude. But yeah,
it's so crazy to me.
Great.
So, with me as usual is, of course, Carson, wearing a beautiful Beetlejuice style shirt. Actually, it's not. It is Dan. How do I introduce you? Dan from OddVoid? Dan from Honest Wargamer? Dan from
I'll take both.
Australia? Okay. Fair enough.
I think at this point in time, I think, unless something's, I don't want to jinx it, but like I've got a citizenship application in and I've passed the test. I've passed the Canada test.
Heck yeah, dude.
I only found out afterwards that it was a written exam after all of my fucker Canadian friends tricked me into fighting that bear up on Grouse Mountain.
Oh man, he's getting old now. It's fine.
Yeah. And I fought him in winter. He was super sluggish. He kept dropping his guard.
Idiot.
Fought the bear, got that. Now, so I think now I get to be an actual. So I think I'm Dan from Australia, from Canada, and from just all over the shop. But yeah, I'm just Dan who loves war dollies. Just love me some war dollies.
I mean, that's true. And by the way, we call that the Zangief test. In fighting the bear.
Gotcha.
He's from Russia, but it's all the same thing, really.
I get. He fights internationally.
He does. He does like Zangief, that's why.
Exactly. Yep. So I just go where the war dollies makes me happy. That's the way of it.
The real
very
question,
lucky to meet a lot of great people. Yeah.
I mean, we've been lucky to have you. The real question though is, at Worlds, are you going to cheer for Team Australia, or are you going to cheer for Team Canada once you get your citizenship?
Okay, so here's the thing.
See, we know where his loyalties really lie.
This only mattered once, and that was when Australia played Team Canada.
Yeah.
It was because other than that, I am happy to be violently pro Canada and pro Australia.
That makes sense.
So what I'm going to say is that when it came down to it, Worlds 2023.
Okay.
When I had to put my chips in, I put my chips in for Team Canada.
What?
Worlds 2024, when I had to put my chips in, I put my chips in for Team Australia. So Worlds 2025, I think I'm back to having to put it into Team Canada.
That's very smart.
Only when I have to choose. Otherwise, I will violently abuse the Americans. And also the French on behalf of Canada.
Excellent.
Because obviously nobody hates the French more than French Canadians.
That's true.
And also obviously Australia just hates everyone. So I will abuse everyone as an Australian, and I will abuse Team USA and Team France as a Canadian.
I think that's a very smart move to cheer for Team Canada if when forced to, especially while you've got your application in, just in case it gets back to them. You know, a lot of those guys are.
The only team that I will never cheer against is Sweden. Team Sweden. I will never cheer against Sweden because they are not only beautiful and talented, they're fucking massive, Rob. They're massive. They're the biggest humans.
They're the biggest humans on the earth. Yeah.
Like apparently it's meant to be those folks from Amsterdam are the tallest, but my God, the Swedish.
Oh, is it Amsterdam? Huh.
Not Amsterdam. The Dutch, I think, are like the tallest people on earth, but the
it's
Swedes
some kind of Viking
behind.
country. Yeah, yeah.
Massive. Yeah.
I think it probably depends on years. Wow. Braden, holy moly, man. I saw your message earlier. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. Goodness gracious. That was a lot of people. Oh. Braden, 20 gift memberships. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Look at that beautiful birthday gifting.
That is so kind of you. I see that the membership goal isn't updating, so thanks, widget, I guess. I don't know
good plugins.
yeah.
Bethesda DLC.
Oh,
definitely.
Man. Yeah, this is like got Skyrim jumping up a mountain while crouching backwards written all over it.
Yeeted into the sky by a freaking giant.
By a giant, wham. Oh, that was the best thing ever. Thank you so much, Braden. That is incredibly generous of you. Congrats to all the people that got it, including Matthias, who is often on the channel, which is kind of funny. Wow, that's so many people. Yeah, and thanks to everyone. Sorry, I didn't see everyone's birthday wishes. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you guys. So tonight, we've got a very special guest in Dan. He has started this...
Sorry, there's a very special guest in me?
Yeah,
that's a good place for a guest to be.
I was told
I'm full of bones and blood.
I was told that you were actually one of those aliens from Men in Black with the little guys controlling them in your face.
Yeah, see, I'm like a Russian nesting doll. There's just lots of different... You open me up and then, there's like lots of little dudes that just come out. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that wasn't a pass at you. I just heard that about the Men in Black and I just, it made sense to me. So we have a special OddVoid takeover of this channel, but first we do have a couple of pieces of minor and by the way, Dan is obviously a huge AoS player. Are you a commentator every year for Worlds?
Only sometimes. So I have been the last few, but I haven't actually stuck my head above the trenches outside of editing for the last little while to work out what the go is this year.
Right. Okay. Well, often doing that, you were famous in the AoS community before you even came over here. You were known as Dispossessed Dan, famous for playing Dispossessed dwarves, of course.
Well, they fucking made my dwarves into race traders by lumping them in with humans and elves. No. Nope.
Yeah, nope. Dan's a huge fan of elves.
Don't love that. Don't love that.
Also, Dan...
no, sorry, I'm not done. Can we talk about the fact that in the lore now, apparently, like if you read some of the books or like the stuff about grey water fastness, it's the dispossessed who are responsible for making the arms and armor for a lot of them, the humans, or you've got dwarves taking orders from humans. Meanwhile, like you've got dwarves that are like, so we make all of the stuff because our god is a smith god and you guys suck at all of this, and yet we'll then take instruction from you as to how to shoot our cannons. I got a lot of problems. With I love Cities of Sigmar. I love the concept of cosmopolitan cities within the mortal realms. I despise that they took away my option for me to have elitist, racist dwarves, because like the dwarven word for human is umgi, which means shoddily made. And that's like that. So like if they're talking about a human, the word human is synonymous with the word shoddily made. Like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I used to know the name for Skaven because it's in the Thankful novels.
Thagaraki, I think.
Something that sounds right.
Anyway, I think it's that. I can't remember. I just remember the human one because it upsets me. Like it upset dwarves were allies with elves way back when they weren't a bunch of knife-eared, treacherous wankers.
Before high elves even existed, right?
Yeah, before the dark elf schism, and
right.
I mean that whole thing was just what based around dark elves, high elves not wanting to admit that there was a civil war, which seems even worse. But I love Dispossessed. I love the concept of back when it was like a race of dwarves, and Grungy was like, all right, well, fuck yous, you're on your own because you just keep sticking to the old ways, and if I hang around, you'll keep sticking to the old ways, so I'm going to go away for a while. And that's where you then had the KO went off and they evolved, tech evolved and they went up into the skies. You had Grimnir leading the Fire Slayers, and you had the Dispossessed, who were basically like, you had the Root Kings, which is a sick name, but also they like carved their fortresses out of trees, and they were taking like the lands of the Sylvaneth and the lands of the Wanderers and things like that. You had all these really cool things about the Dispossessed, like a race of artisan like reliable, stubborn craftspeople who went out into the realms and created cities where there shouldn't have been cities, and then all of that's gone now, and it's just hammerers are good surrounded by humans, and that makes me sad.
So Dan has very mild opinions about dwarves, as everyone.
I am a very strong totalitarian dwarf beard supremacist. Yes.
They call him Dwarf Mazda Mundi. Because I don't want to see the other thing. Yeah.
The other thing's bad.
Yeah, the other thing's bad, especially on this YouTube. The goal, Braden, overall is at 200. Yeah, we're hoping to get there by next month. The 20th is the date.
Oh yeah.
We currently have 69.
Good number.
Yeah, the great number. I don't know why the membership goal isn't updating. It's really annoying. And Braden, huge supporter of the channel, amazing guy. He is a huge fan of Fire Slayers as well. But you haven't read the new Gotrek and Felix, or the new Gotrek novels.
No,
in AoS, right?
I've done Realm Slayer, and I think I've done the one after that, but I'm not all the way caught up.
So you've done the 2 audio plays.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because then there's Ghoul Slayer, and then there's Git Slayer, and then the third one in the trilogy by Darius Hinks was Soul Slayer. And
yeah, right. Yeah.
They get better.
Yeah, okay.
They get better. It's wild. He actually really gets the character, and I love the idea of Gotrek kind of coming to the mortal realms and basically being like the avatar of like the old fantasy players who are like, this all sucks. It's all bullcrap. Yeah. You guys are just like copies of us, and like you can feel that that's like what they were going for. It's brilliantly done, and like in the tradition of William King, they do like there's always bits from the other sort of factions perspective, and the stuff with FEC is as amazing as you could possibly imagine it to be. It's like exactly what it should be. I don't want to give anything away. The Goblin stuff is fantastic, and the Idneth, of course, are very interesting.
The original Gotrek and Felix books, you're 100% right. A big part of that was when they'd go and you'd see it from the Skaven perspective, and that was super awesome, or the Chaos perspective, and you were like learning about how they were trying all the politicking that had to be done inside of Chaos. Or the one that jumps to mind the most is when spoilers for like a 25-year-old book, Ulrika in the original Gotrek and Felix books gets kidnapped by like a High Lord vampire, and she's learning about kind of the inner workings of his cabal, but also you learn about his position in the cabal of like the Lamian vampires, because he is still the spawn of another vampire, and like it just fleshes it out. A great read for anyone who is a 40k person is in the Gaunt's Ghost series. There's a book called Traitor General that's about a small team that drops into a chaos, like a world that's been taken by chaos recently, and it's very much about how chaos comes to rule like the citizenry and the populations, and like the things that they allow people to do to control them and stuff, and without like just being like, we are chaos, we are this and all of that. It's very much like, oh, this is how chaos like runs their worlds and like their planets, rather than just what we see, which is the war and the stabbing and the murder ritual stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I remember when the old books were coming out, I always said, like, I really want a book from the perspective of the Lizardmen. And everyone said, you can't do that. And I said, bullcrap, you can't. Robert Backer wrote a novel from the perspective of a Utah raptor called Raptor Red. If he can do that, you can write a perspective about something that can, like, talk and communicate, and, you know what I mean? Is like, whatever, right?
There have been examples of stuff written from the perspective of gene stealer cults and Tyranids, and like they're usually like I know the Tyranid ones are usually very small sections. However, if you can do that, for sure you could do like Seraphon.
Well, that's it. And it wouldn't have to be the whole thing. It probably shouldn't be the whole thing. But what I was going to say, though, was William King kind of started that, and then C.L. Werner continued it. And then we got that in Temple of the Serpent. And, you know, it's maybe like 1/20th of the whole book. It's like maybe 5%. But the way he did it was the way it should be done. So actually, Adrian, what's his name? Tchaikovsky, the guy who wrote the Gene Stealer cult novel, he wrote like a novella or a short story or something from the perspective of like a skink priest or something like that. Right. I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but I am going to. It's way up there. But
I just love the idea of like the Gene Stealer cult stuff when they like birth a full Gene Stealer, but they see it as their child. And they're like, from Timothy and his many arms and the way that he likes to eat his friends. Oh, Timothy, love you so much. Like, here, let me paint you the war colors on you so that you're ready for battle. Oh, yes, my darling. Oh, you're so brave. Off you go. It just fills me with joy.
And then I see like one of those like alien style chomper things that comes out and like bites part of her ear off, and she's just like,
no, stop it, Timothy. You've got work to do, and the many-armed emperor is coming for you. But I guess like this is weirdly a roundabout way of saying my favorite thing about Warhammer since the very, very beginning has always been story. Like I started out, I think, as a lot of people do. I was just very much the gaming aspect of it when I was much younger. It was like I just played 40K. I was a basic bitch. I played Dark Angels back when it was like a thin softback flip book codex thingy that you could flip through in 30 seconds. I played Dark Angels back then. And I never painted them because even though I told myself I would, fuck painting, like I was about gaming. And writing lists, and then I got into Warhammer Fantasy and painting, and into the lore and the fiction and stuff. And I was like, oh, it's story. Like story just gets me, and that's kind of where for me armies are about now, converting and painting and putting together like a fun story with a good bit of stuff behind it. And that's kind of where the OddVoid thing came from as well. Was a desire to tell stories.
What a beautiful segue. Okay, before we get fully into that. Because you do play Age of Sigmar, obviously, and you're going to be part of a campaign that we haven't like fully properly announced, but Darren said I could talk about it. Dan is going to be part of the Saga of Six Gamers campaign that we're coming out with relatively soon. We've got more announcements and some really cool stuff. We've got a huge sponsorship that's going on for that. But what I can say for now is that Dan is going to be part of it. Darren is going to be part of it. Kenrick, Carson, and of course, I'm going to be part of it. And it's basically based on those Tale of Four Gamers articles from White Dwarf back in the day. I don't know if for those of you who remember it. We'll do a whole separate show on that. But
I was just about to say, oh, and don't forget, like, because there's Andy in it, but then I was also going to say, like,
Andy, God.
They're going to be playing, and I was like, no, wait, no, don't. Oh God, no. We don't,
yes. We've got
secrets.
Awesome stuff coming. Well, wait, what? Okay, dang it, Darren, you actually got me. You son of a. Okay. Anyway, but before we fully go on to OddVoid and Heretic Hunt and everything else, did you see the rumor engine today?
I haven't. I literally haven't. This is what my days look like at the moment, right? I wake up. And today, I woke up naked and confused to a knocking on my door because I was having groceries delivered that I didn't know about.
Oh, no.
And so I said, thank you for that. And then I edit for like a solid 8 to 10 hours. And then I collapse into a puddle. So that's how I exist. I exist in a state of editing or asleep and or confused. So I haven't looked at the rumor engine, but I would love to look at the rumor engine.
So I didn't see it either. I had a doctor's appointment today and like 50 other things. And right before I went to my doctor's appointment, my mom accidentally let the dog out, and he was like, he didn't get out for a walk today, so he was like sprinting around my mom.
So I was going for like a who let the dogs out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fine. That was.
It was bad. It was bad.
Let's
move on and never talk about it again.
Okay. We never. I didn't hear anything. But yeah. So I looked at. I put it up for the stream, and then I looked at it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it could be a lot of things, to be honest. I wanted to say ogres at first. Like, it's like his little, like the head is basically like his little, like, grab bag of goodies, like a snack pouch.
Okay, it feels very Gloomspite to me. Like, very Gits. Like, it feels trolls or Gits or, like, the idea of a bag that's a head and then some kind of dusty powdery thing in it definitely feels like goblin-y to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. But we just got a bunch of Git stuff.
Troll character, that's what I want it to be.
Ooh, troll character would be amazing.
Actually, Cruel Boys, maybe?
Cruel Boys is not, that's a good call too. Thank you so much, Keith, for the gift sub. That's awesome. You took us to a respectable, non-perverted number or whatever for our subscriptions.
99 more now. 99 more gift subs to get to 169.
Or yeah, we need 99. Yeah.
It could be ogres. I mean, look, the other thing to think about is how long it's been since these armies have gotten any models.
I've predicted an ogre resculpt this year, which is very bold, and or whatever in the coming year. I think we're going to get one. It's just a matter of when, and I'm sure we're going to get it this edition. But again, it's just a matter of when.
See,
right?
I think the thing is, knee jerk, it would make me think about Flesh Eater Courts. However, Flesh Eater Courts has been really recent, and their whole aesthetic, while it's like grim and bloody and bones and foul, it's actually quite regal. The concept of them having like a bag that's a face is not like, doesn't read with their aesthetic.
I totally agree.
Ogres maybe, because it kind of leans into like all of their spell names like Spine Marrow and Bone Cruncher and things. I'd love for this to be, can you imagine if they were re-releasing like the Troggoth Hag and this was like her bag or something like that? The Troll Princess comes back.
That's a great call. And it might not even be AoS. As we said, not ogres, heads go in the pot, not on the pole. Like point. Your mom. I mean, excuse me. Sorry, I was just kidding. But this is not on a pole. This is like a knife, and I think it's like on like their side. I think it's like attached to their waist kind of deal. FEC needs a Morbeg hero. That's a great idea.
The head, like it is the size of an ogre or a troll, which means that the blade beside it is either a big knife.
That's what I think. Yeah,
it feels like it's probably a model that is larger. Like that's why I'm kicking with troll or ogre or something along those lines.
That would be sick. I would like that. And it's also possible that it's like a war cry or underworlds thing. So it could still be Gits. It could be anything really. But yeah,
that's what happened to Mollog of Mollog's mob, just dead, turned into a bag. That's where it moves on. Heartbreak, but that's fine.
I love Mollog. Yeah.
Poor Mollog.
Poor Mollog indeed. And then we did get a Kato, not Caitlyn, but Ezeshiar of Soulblight fame. Man, that was hard to pronounce for some reason. Did you see these models?
Yeah, the team, the Soulblight specialist forces.
Yeah, exactly. Soulblight Team 6. Is that what we're calling them? Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if they get full, like they say they've got full rules coming. But then I did read the 40k equivalent, which is like a guardsman's, like a guardswoman's team from a book
they said
series
Regiment
in
of
40K.
Renown, right?
Yeah, they said Regiment around for this, which is interesting because the 40k alternative is Legends. So I'm just saying that's why if I was comparing AoS to 40k, I'm like, we get rules for cool characters that get to play. 40k gets to eat shit unless you play Legends, in which case you're rad. So obviously things are going well here. Now let's talk about the 40k series that I'm working on.
Okay, yeah. Well, so but in all seriousness, though, I have the current Kato model, and he's awesome. And the stories, his novels are also amazing. Yeah. I actually heard about it on Warhammer Weekly. I haven't got a chance to check them out much lately, but they were doing a show just on characters and rating how cool they are or something like that. And then neither Vince nor I think it was Steve Herner that was on there was had heard of Kato or in terms of what he'd done in the story. And then the chat was he's a vampire detective, and I was like, okay, Googling where can I buy his novel immediately, and then they had the same reaction. I read it. It's really good. And I like this model even more. In the current one's awesome, but this one's even cooler, and it's more indicative of his story with the rings and whatnot. But then we've got these two other awesome people. She reminds me of what's her name, Isabella von Karstein, kind of with the hair, right? Yeah. And then this other dude isn't even he's not even a vampire. He's
he's a wizard.
A wizard, right? Is he a necromancer? I can't remember.
He's a necromancer, death wizard, necromancer.
Death wizard, awesome.
Yeah,
oh man.
Very cool. I'm interested, very cool. I don't know. I really love her aesthetic, and I really love the new Kato aesthetic. I'm not sold on it's not that I'm not sold on old mate necromancer. I think he would look really cool without the snake for me, because and which I know sounds maybe a little bit weird, but the snake is it's an odd texture, and I understand that there's a bit of contrast there, and that's fun. But he's very flowing. He's got this big flowing robes. Helm. He's got like robes. He's got if you look at his staff, it's all very smooth. It's all very chic and metallic.
Interesting.
And then the snake is very scraggly and low. And I saw the model and I was immediately I love this model. I'm gonna throw the snake in the bin and use him as a as a necromancer or something like that. But I really don't know why, but just I think the snake kind of detracts from the wizard for me. Which,
interesting.
But I love the whole vibe of it.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I totally agree. I'll answer you in just 1 second, Braden. Thank you for reminding me, because I actually almost forgot.
More dice.
I think you kind of actually hit the nail on the head for why I like it. I like the contrast in the texture. I think it would have been nice though if they'd had it as a separate model, but whatever. We you can't always pick and choose, whatever. But I'm excited for it. Yeah,
they're combo modeling a lot more. The last new Lamia lady, the tall vampire lady with her snake. You've got Kato with his advisor. We're seeing a lot more releases of miniatures that feature that.
Absolutely, yeah. He's got I think it's 9 rings, and each one has a different soul in it.
Yeah. They're his friends and advisors or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't want to give anything away because they kind of go back and forth in the novel. It's done really well. But anyway, so that's all the news we got, unfortunately. But Braden, I just got the dice in today. Literally, they came in today.
Fancy rat dice.
I'll put a picture up. These are the old ones because they came in today, and I was at the doctor, and I didn't even have a chance. I opened them up. They are still the ultra matte, the ultra matte that sucks in all, light and whatever. You can read them in the dark. It's wild how easy they are to read. This time they're slightly different. I didn't ask for this change, but there's more green in it. She made it so that there's more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there's more neon green, a little less black, but they seem just as easy to read as before, but maybe a little bit more Skaven-y. So yeah, they are in. I will add them to the Etsy store. Probably tomorrow, because I'm going to be super busy even tonight. But yeah, I'm
rad.
They're honestly I'm so happy with them, and they sold like insanely well. Like they were the fastest selling dice by far. I also have the Slan dice coming back in at the end of the month, and I've got some new Orc Synthwave dice that are coming at the end of the month as well. I'm super excited for both of those, and then I've got new Kraken dice that are coming sometime later. So we'll see, but. Yeah, I'm super excited, and thank you so much to Braden and everyone else who got some. It really helps out. Anyway, okay, so we didn't have a chance to talk beforehand, Dan. Should I show I pulled up the Heretic Hunt trailer video?
Yeah,
Should I show that? Sure. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna turn down this. Music that Good Hawk Music was kind enough to let me use. Pull up the trailer. Oh, you can't see it because I've got the dice over top of it. My apologies. There we go. So it's like 2 minutes. Should I show the whole thing?
Sure, why not? I think
okay.
It's long.
It's 2 minutes long, but I wanted to make sure. Let me know. Let me know if I need to turn it up. Okay. Okay. I'm starting it now.
I don't even remember what was in the trailer. It's been so
Oh man, I have some stuff to say. Once we're done.
Deep within the mega structure of a hive city, heresy festers and threatens the billions of people calling it home. 4 heroes emerge, desperate to stem the rising tide of chaos. It's a shame that no one else was available.
Hey, you! The lady heard you calling.
I think you're just squeezing more blood out of my body.
You got this.
Do you need comforting?
I've got this. I've definitely got this.
Are you kidding? Here, kitty. My games!
A tracker? We need to get that off his body. It is as good as gone.
Oh, you're cold-blooded.
Come on. Come on.
Damn, what that means right now.
We're gonna deal with you later.
Daddy!
How about this weather?
I'm sorry. Did you just understand that we have to leave?
Cue montage.
Okay. I don't know if you can, because there's a time delay, so I'm not sure.
Sure, I feel like that's bad.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, let me pull up. I took the picture you sent me. Boop. There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And
I think
there we go.
That picture was from the moment where Peachy said something either incredibly smart or incredibly dumb, and then I think Louise yelled in his ear. Something along those lines was that
That's so
moment. But yeah.
Okay, sorry. I have to address Keith. I've been watching it. Dan actually knows this. I have subscribed on 3 different channels. I've got my old original channel that I used to have, and I've got which is where I watched everything over on my TV, because I watch it while I eat dinner and stuff like that.
Watch while you paint. Watch while your hobby. That's what it's there for.
Actually, no. Here's why I don't. Let me address that in a second. I did just like it. Okay, I did just like it right now. Let me remove that. Boop. Okay, wait. Oh, you can't see it. Wait, there. Where is it? Oh, you can't see it because of the dice. Okay. There we go. I did just like it, but I've been liking and commenting mainly on my new channel that no one knows about. I started like a new channel.
Secret channel.
Secret channel. It's actually about teaching English and stuff. Yeah, I wanted to teach people English. I'm passionate about languages and stuff.
You can just be honest. It's a bunch of sock puppet accounts to abuse people. That's fine. Like you can just tell us what they're there for.
I never thought of that before. I actually literally never thought of that.
I
need to make something that wouldn't be obviously me though. Like, listening and learning English with Rob. It's not super. It's not very clandestine.
Yeah.
Okay, I have so much to say about this though. Okay, so one second. I made a Google Doc. I've watched the first 2 episodes, by the way. I have not seen the third one because it just came out.
Today.
Morning.
Yeah. So episodes 1 and 2 came out last week. Episode 3 came out today, and they go live at what is, if you are West Coast, like Vancouver, or one of those wankers that lives in LA. It's 11 a.m. our time. I think that makes it on the East Coast. I think that makes it 2 p.m. I don't know Freedom Eagle time zones.
Oh, yeah, 2 p.m. and then like 7 p.m.
and then 7 p.m. in London. Right. Over there, because admittedly 3 of our spectacular players are based there, and so it seemed like a bit of a dick move to then be like, I'm going to put this at a very uncomfortable time for you beautiful folks. So that's where every week a new episode comes out.
Is it always at 11 a.m.?
Nice.
Nice.
Always consistently 11.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's because that way it's weekly for the run of the series.
Yeah. It is okay. I'm sorry. One more thing before we go on. Big Ron said he would love to see some Stormcast dice. All the dice I designed myself, Big Ron, and I have to have an idea for something I think is funny or whatever. Like the Slan dice are Hypno Slan, like from Futurama. Like everything is like something that I'm designing. So I kind of I don't take, stuff from other people. So so I have to have an idea. But if you have an idea for something like I can make, like I'm always open to it, it has to be something that I think will work. Kenrick actually had a great idea for dice, but I can't afford it yet. I'll maybe explain that later.
Cast out of pure Sigmarite.
Well, basically, it's okay. No, I can't say it because the idea is so good. I'm like, I don't want anyone to know about it until I can afford it, and then I'll make it.
Save it for when you can do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's anyway. So okay, back to Heretic Hunt. I've tried to watch Critical Role. I've tried to watch quite a few RPG shows. The only one that I got into before this was it's done by the same guy as Critical Role, and it had Ashley Johnson and like a bunch of people, and it was shorter form. It was something like Greywater or Grey something. I can't remember.
Yep. I know the one you're talking about. I don't recall the name, but yes.
And I like that one. And then I think it stopped for some reason. I don't know. It stopped showing up in my inbox anyway. This is my favorite though, out of any of them by far. I couldn't get into Critical Role because, and there's nothing wrong with it. Obviously it's insanely popular. But I couldn't get into it. Like I started with episode 1 and it's like 4 hours long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of slow and whatever. I'm not complaining about it, but this one, obviously I'm into 40K, so that helps. I'm more into AoS, but I'm super into 40K and as well, not as much as AoS, but yeah. So anyway, but I know the universe. And so, you know what I mean? And there's not it doesn't start off with oh, okay, would you introduce your character? And then we get 20 minutes of expositional backlog. You guys just start off in the action and you kind of find out about the characters naturally in that first episode. It's so well done. The effects, the music, everything. It's so freaking good, dude. I actually told Dan, actually, what did I tell you before we started the show?
Oh yeah, that if it sounded like your praise was fake and too gushing to pull you back in, because
To pull me back in.
Honestly, the stuff that you're saying is really lovely to hear, because that's kind of where a lot of it came from. So I guess the reason we made it is because I've always wanted to like kind of tell a story like this, and Jam, who plays one of the characters, is also produces the show, and she's spectacular, and also, like myself, has a background in film.
Oh.
And so, and both of us have watched this kind of stuff at different times and different levels. And I would say exactly what you just said. Like, I really enjoy the concept of Critical Role, and I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole, particularly during COVID, of like Dimension 20. For anyone who knows that crew, they're really awesome as well.
Oh, cool.
But every time I find a cool one, I then look at like the episode count. And I'm like, man, the shortest one is like 24 episodes to a season, but usually it's like 36 because it's a stream like every week and a campaign every year. And they're like, and people are like, well, there's abridged stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I just like, not to throw shade, I don't have the time for that in my like if I was to go back and watch it all, I absolutely couldn't make it happen. Which genuinely was not me being like, I don't like this. I was like, for some people, that's perfect. That's their happy place. That's what they've got. But for me, I was like, no. And so when we spoke about it, the goal was to create a show. First of all, we had a couple of stipulations. One was that we all played in the room together. There's a bunch of great shows out there where everyone's just streaming in, and that's absolutely awesome. But for me, to be able to have that kind of odd spontaneity, we had to be in the room and playing live. The second was that the goal was for episodes to be between 45 minutes to an hour and 20, so that they were all really short, and that the season would not be longer than 8 episodes. So that at any, so for instance, the seasons, but the goal being to have more like faster release of shorter seasons. Right. So, for instance, once this one finishes, we're hoping that we can maybe find a way financially to immediately go into production of a second season that we could then get out quite quickly, hopefully before even the middle of the year, if that's possible. Wow. Because the thing is, though, if let's say like you drop in and you see it and you're like, oh, and it's by the time episode 6 or 7's coming out, and then you're like, oh, it's episode 7. There's only one more episode in the season to come out. And if you want to go back and watch it, you could watch it in an afternoon the same way you would binge any Netflix series. Right. And that's kind of the goal for it, is to make it accessible, but also like time-wise available. And that was the whole kind of shot.
Which, I'm actually sad to hear that there's only 8 episodes. Like, I'm enjoying it that much.
Only 8 episodes in this season.
I get it, but I'm still just like, it's like I mean, there's 8 episodes I think usually in Invincible, and that just came out with a new season, and I'm waiting for all of them to come out because and they're trying to do it like once a year, so it's very similar. But you know, I mean, it's just, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be doing more seasons though. Like that's really, you know, that would have been my next question. Okay, so remember when I said earlier, like I don't watch it while I'm painting, and here's why. Yeah. So, do you know Red Letter Media's like Best of the Worst?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
So what they do is they watch old movies, like a lot of them are on VHS and stuff like that. They watch like old crappy movies, and then basically they discuss at the end which one is the best of the worst or whatever, and I feel the same way about OddVoid as I do about that, where I'm like, I have to watch this. I can't just listen, because I tried just listening while I was painting the other day, and I kept having to rewind it because I wanted to see what was going on. It's so good.
I think that the catch-22 of the, like exactly what you say, the catch-22 of this series is another big thing about what we wanted to do was it's very heavily edited. And by that I mean we don't edit out any of the gameplay or the stuff that happens, but we shorten it. And a big thing when we were preparing for it and we were talking about how we were going to create it, how we were going to produce it, was watching a lot of that content and going, okay, cool. Like, say you get to a combat episode, it takes so long to get through everyone's turns. And in RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons, a player turn is meant to be in game 6 seconds long. That's how long you have. Your entire turn takes in world 6 seconds. So the idea being that, like, if you then let everything play out. So for instance, what we would do a lot of the times when we were playing, like, I'm going through the edit and like trimming those pieces together. So rather than having like the moment where someone goes, okay, so I'm going to roll for an attack. I'm going to use my crossbow and that's got a plus whatever. Like, rather than just leaving that in, that's the edit part. And then we tried to make the so it's not that we cut anything out. We just cut the
you know what's
the
wild?
pauses, I guess. Yeah,
dude, it's incredible because I didn't realize that you were editing that out. What it seems like is it just seems like, okay, I'm going to do this and I roll. And then you're like, okay, give me this roll. And then they roll it. I didn't even notice the edits.
By the end of the season, that is exactly what we were like, and it actually made it.
Fair.
As the season goes along. So basically, episode 1 and 2, where we were kind of finding our feet. First combat is episode 2, and then and kind of setting it up in episode 1. But after we sort of found that the pace became, it was possibly the biggest challenge as the game master was that the pace the players were rolling out, I was like, oh crap. And I didn't want to stop them and be like, stop, I need to think. Like, I just wanted to kind of let that wonderful excitement and storytelling go. But
it's
the other thing was not to actually, and this is honestly, for me, the most time consuming thing, infinitely more time consuming, is we're editing it like TV or editing it like a movie. So anyone that watches it, you now that I've pointed this out, you'll notice it. We cut shots constantly, just about every couple of seconds. We go to who's talking, we go to reactions, we edit it as if it was TV because that was the goal. And that is massively time consuming compared to, I definitely see shows that can just put like their screens up and let it run with all of their players. I'm like, oh gosh, that'd be nice. That'd be so fucking nice. But the proof's in the pudding, and it makes it, I think, a lot of fun to watch. And it made it a lot of fun to run too, knowing that we were punching around. And it's great because the thing is, through the edit, you can draw attention to those small moments where, say myself and a player are talking about their attack roll is happening, and then there's somebody else who we're waiting to find out the result of their dice roll, and they're just sitting there with like a horrified look on their face, just like it's like that you're like, okay, shit, something's coming up here, rather than just getting caught up in the people that are speaking. So it's a lot of fun.
That is awesome. Yeah, I it's so well done. I didn't even notice it. What up, Tom? I'm just coming over here now. So I've got some notes. Okay. You're a great DM.
Oh, thank you.
You're an excellent DM. There's always this kind of improv style, yes, and you're great about like describing things and giving. And this is partially credit to the players and partially credit to you, but no one steps over each other. Everyone has their own moment. It's like you're all actors, like really professional, amazing actors, instead of like, you know, I'm not fit like everyone. I think most of us in the Age of Sigmar community know Peachy. You know what I mean? A lot of us know Louise. You know what I mean? But
Greg, you might not know. For those who don't know Greg,
I don't know Greg. I wanted to ask you beforehand, but,
no. So let me tell you why you don't know Greg.
Okay.
Because Games Workshop up to this point hasn't let voiceover artists credit themselves. Greg is the voice of Horus. Greg is the voice of the Red Goblin. Greg is the voice of, if you've watched Hammer and Bolter, the episode about Old Baelai, Greg is telling you the story of Old Baelai. Greg is the voice of Gunnar Brand, of the Slaves to Darkness Brand's Oath Band. Greg is the voice of so many iconic Warhammer characters, and you just don't know it yet, but it's starting to get out. And if you follow that man on TikTok, on Instagram, or anything like that, you will be like, holy crap. Like, I know Greg. I just didn't know Greg.
Wow. Okay, because that's under my note about Greg. My notes are huge surprise. Right. I didn't know Greg. I'm sorry I didn't know Greg.
Yeah.
But so okay. Let's start with Greg. I wasn't going to start with Greg because I wanted to build to Greg. But now that you've talked about Greg, I feel like we need to. Everyone needs to know this man's name.
Yeah.
He plays the Mechanicus tech priest character.
Priest. Yeah.
Yeah. And he does a voice on there that I thought you edited.
Nope.
And then I kept watching, and then of course, because he's not an actual machine, even though he fooled me into thinking that he was, or his voice was made by a machine. Eventually I noticed, oh wait, it's not the exact same mechanical thing each time. It's just him doing the voice.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, and I do voices. I you know, for those that remember, like all the intros of all my videos, I did almost all those voices. Yeah. I love doing that. You know what I mean? Maybe I miss my own calling, but that dude is insane. Like just that alone, like just that mechanical voice alone is absolutely incredible. He's very funny. He's got a pet cat or whatever in Ginger, his robot, robot cat. And I don't know why he's a robot cat, by the way. Like that became the meme on the channel, it seems like. I feel like a dog describes its like character more.
Well, it's because
it's not like
its technical designation is a cyber altered task unit.
Oh,
so that's why it's a cat. And then Greg called it Ginger because he came up with its name. It's like a Gorgon Industries nanotech something, you know, like it was like that. That's where it came from. And that's why it became the cat. And Ginger basically kind of, Keith, you're 100% right. It's from Space Hulk. Space Hulk is where cats first came up. It was an objective. I
see.
An objective you had to collect in Space Hulk. And so
I did not remember that, to be honest. Wow.
Oh yeah, it was deep lore, because initially going back to where Ginger first came from, when Greg and I were talking about his character, about Gamma J 3.1, he wanted to have a servo skull as like his familiar, like floating around. And I was like, cool. In D&D, I tend to not let players or their familiars have the ability to fly. I don't mind it when it's a spell, like something you have to cast that has a limitation. But if you think about, say, storytelling or a lot of stuff like that, the ability to fly immediately unlocks a lot of great options that are a lot of fun, but it removes some creativity. Like say someone wants to spy on someone through a window of a 3rd-story house. Them just being able to be like, so I got a bird familiar. It flies up and it looks through the window and I look through its eyes and I can see what it sees. That's cool. That's a super cool moment. But them climbing up the side of a house and then crouching stealthily beside the window to listen in, it puts the player at the moment of interest rather than them doing it by proxy.
Right.
So that's why for me, usually I try to limit fly abilities. And so when I was like, cool, servo skull, how about if we went with a cyber altered task unit? And he was like, that's way better because it's just so ridiculous.
It's
and I was
so
like, great, there we go.
ridiculous. So, some of the best moments, like there's a moment in episode 2. I won't spoil anything because that would be a crime against everyone. Is
it the bit where all the players abused me for literally just doing what they had put themselves in a position to happen?
Kind of. But what I wanted to say though was there's more emotional attachment for Ginger than any of their other player characters in the game.
Literally, Louise multiple times almost did the things that possibly would have killed Peachy. And yet, as soon as the possibility was for something to happen to Ginger, I have never seen 4 people go through their character sheets, items, and abilities so furiously. That was great.
That's a great moment. Yeah. Oh, and, it's so good.
Fun fact about Greg, when we were recording it, because it was just us, so things had to be kind of set and forget for recording. I had a little bit of software to check the audio as we were going along, make sure nothing was going, and it kept flagging every time he spoke that there was a problem with the audio because his tech priest voice was so good and sounded so electronic. It was going every time he spoke, it was like massive electronical interference on the line, massive electronical interference on the line, and I had to basically turn it off and be like, God, I hope we don't actually have electronical interference because his voice has cooked it.
It sounds so good. It's actually incredible. Everyone needs to watch it. Okay, now moving along. So
Greg is our tech priest, our tech priest engineer, and he is we reskinned a cleric, so he's at the party cleric.
Right.
For anyone who was wondering
because
you've
reskinned Dungeons and Dragons D&D 5th edition, I think.
Yes, when we filmed it, the 2024 players handbook and stuff hadn't come out, so we did we used 5th ed, 2014 5th edition stuff.
Yep, it's great. And so before I forget, speaking of your voices, your surfer voice is awesome. You do like a California surfer bum episode or voice for the
Gene Jocks.
Dang it, I had it. I knew what it was. Okay. It's hilarious. And I've recently been listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I listen to while I paint. Because I don't there's nothing for me to see, but like as I'll talk about in a bit, like there's some of your players you need, like I get so much enjoyment out of watching them when they're doing it. But in the new one, there's the guy that narrates the Dungeon Crawler Carl books from book 2 to book 7 is absolutely like he might be the most talented voice actor I've ever come across. Like, I thought there were like guest star female actors doing the voices for females. It's all just him. It's wild.
Just him crushing it.
His Scottish accent isn't great. I know I'm one to talk, whatever, like, but in the most recent one, he does a Canadian accent and it's hard to listen to as a Canadian because and there's just so many A's in there. It's like, it reminds me of when My American Family, like tries to imitate it. I mean, that's partially obviously on the author for adding that many A's. Like no one in Canada does that anyway, but
made it very hard. I came here expecting it wasn't the case.
It's but your server voice though is like, you're not from the States. You're not from like even Canada where we have a similar accent. You're from Australia.
Yeah.
Peachy is from England. Now he does a posh kind of English accent for his character. I'll get to him in a second. Jamila, I think, is also from Australia.
Jam is an Aussie. However, her background is in theater, and her accent is kind of very what I think it's what we would call ATS, which is Australian Theatre Standard. So her accent is very neutral between, say, Australia and England. And but then we'll talk about her in a second. But her character voice was naturally American, but then her whole vibe was that she was a con woman. So her accent kind of changes depending on the role that she's playing.
It does, and there's a great moment with her. Actually, before I'll get to her in a second. Okay, so
we'll stick to what?
Yeah. I already talked about Ginger and that epic emotional investment. Okay. I got like a lot of the general stuff I put just listed under you.
Yeah.
The minis and terrain.
Genuinely, this was a huge thing as well in doing this, was that we were like, why don't we do a Warhammer RPG game using systems that are designed to use minis and go from there, because we have access to these beautiful minis, these beautiful sets and stuff. And a couple were done by Louise, a bunch were done by Peachy. So a bunch of the like all the player characters were done by Peachy, which was super cool.
Jamila's character.
Adiva. It's the oh gosh, I can't remember the model's name now.
I said it to you when I first watched it.
Yeah, you did.
It's the Soulblight Gravelord's character that came out for Cursed City.
Yeah, with the big rough.
And the long dress.
Yeah, trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it normally comes on an oval. She comes on an oval, but you guys have her on a round. And that conversion, like, I recognize the body of that conversion, but I messaged you and I was like, that's definitely the body, but like, I didn't recognize any of it. And it looks natural. It looks like what it's supposed to be.
I was about to say that was insane seeing Peachy's paint job on that, and like his Peachy, the miniature for his player character as well is an old Underhive Scum model,
and it
looks like rad. It just
looks perfect. It looks like it looks like its own miniature. It doesn't look like like it's the same with Adiva's character model or. Yeah, the miniature. It doesn't look like Skyla. Is that her name?
Something.
Skyla.
Something. I feel like I know its weapon name is like the Proboscis blade or something, but I don't know the actual name of the model.
Yeah.
And so then I did almost all the sets and like the
terrain
bad guys and non-player characters and stuff. Yeah, but they were
so good.
Here's the goal, because obviously we only used terrain on episodes where there was like combats and things that we needed to do. The goal for the next season, which hopefully is if we can maybe make enough money to be able to afford it, would be to use minis and sets for everything, for like the whole, so that like even you go to a marketplace and it's full of people and vendors and stuff like that. We can constantly do that because the minis were so awesome. There was the final combat, not to give anything away, was, and the storyline I planned had multiple outcomes, multiple everything, multiple paths. I even had to be ready because I was like, Louise and Peachy combined can be a very chaotic energy.
Louise and Peachy.
For those who know them both, they are separately feel like they would be the person that would help keep you on track. Together, they are beautifully, spectacularly insane. And they both enhance and contrast and everything. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, I got to be ready for possibly anything. We might end the show loyalist. We might end the show with them committing heresy, like leading us into heresy. Like I don't know how it's going to be. So I planned truly like a spider's web of paths. But when we finally do get to the big final confrontation in episode 8, things happened in episode 7 that drastically altered where and how and when that happened. So we took a lunch break. And I was like, I kind of went to Peachy. I was like, hey, Peachy, how fast can you paint terrain? And he was like, I've fucked things up for you, haven't I? And I was like, yes, you have, Peachy. Yes, you have. So what we did is over that course of that lunch break, there was literally a conga line of myself and the players with Peachy guiding us as we blitz painted up a bunch of extra pieces of terrain for that last engagement.
Really?
Because it took place in a location that I'd not entirely planned for how it was going to play out, which was super cool. But yeah, that was the only like danger painting last minute stuff. But yeah, it was, the miniatures were something else. Very, very satisfying.
Wow. Huh. Oh man. Okay. Okay. So I can't give anything away. There's a point where you guys go to the drip.
The drip, yes. Episode 2.
Yes. I can't remember when this happens, but there's a dice roll that you set up ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm almost 100% certain I know the one you're talking about. It's a very timely dice roll. Doesn't.
How did that? Like, what were you gonna? I can't ask that. Like, what was your what? how did you think about, like, because there's no way that things should have happened the way that they happen.
Correct. So what I'll tell you then without so go and watch if you want to know what we're talking about. It's episode 2. It's in about the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There's like kind of a rough skeleton of the whole story because and it's maybe a little bit more of a firm skeleton than a normal RPG campaign because we're trying to do it for a show, so we can't, and we want to keep it shorter episodes and nice and concise and not a 57 episode season. So there had to be a bit of planning. So I was like, okay, this episode features these elements was kind of a thing, and there were multiple different paths that they could have taken, and episode 2 could have, in my planning, ended up in any of 3 or 4 different locations, and it just happened to end up playing out in the Drip, and each of those locations had their own challenges and people and everything like that. That role that you are specifically referencing fucked my plans basically made me do like a hairpin turn into something different, and it doesn't seem like that. The reason in the edit I left the camera on all 5 of us was because I was like, no one's gonna believe this role. No one's gonna believe it. And honestly, we didn't put a camera on dice because we were like, the dice are never gonna matter. The dice are the method for telling the story. So
there's been 2 instances. There's 2 instances in the second episode where that's not true.
Exactly. So for the next season, immediately we're like, okay,
dice cam.
We need it for big roles. We need a dice cam. It was 100%. It was something where we were like, what's the worst that happens? And then of course that's the way that goes down.
You're gonna have to roll in the middle or something, otherwise you're gonna need 5 dice cams.
Yeah. So we didn't fudge any dice rolls for the whole game. No. And now sometimes that means that there were like what should have felt like big hits that ended up being a little bit less impactful, and sometimes it meant that there were times where what should have been a bit more balanced ended up being an absolute overwhelming display of force. And you can tell that it wasn't meant to be like that in that big role, because you set it up ahead of time. You're like, I'm gonna give these guys a chance. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, that was the thing. I was like, look, by the way the game is played, I'm not gonna cheat you out on this. I'm gonna give it a shot. And,
it's always that yes and I love that. It's so much more fun to watch. Okay, moving on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk about Louise for a moment. Mm-hmm. Louise. So Greg was the biggest surprise in that I wasn't aware of Greg and his immense talent, right? And so I just thought he was I actually thought he was like probably just another painting person that I just, because there's too many painting people. Like when I heard of Marco Frassoni, it was when he was already like one of the most famous YouTuber painter guys in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he's probably just someone that I, happen to not, he just happens to not be in my Venn diagram of what I'm aware
Painters
of.
And lore hammerists. They're everywhere.
Oh man, that's so true. So Louise, I knew. I first saw her episode on, because I think she was responsible for how they photographed things, right? And she did that whole thing about like how to do the base and whatever. Yeah. It's a great video. All her videos are great. I've seen a lot of them. She's an excellent painter, but she might be the biggest surprise for me. And it's actually because of Louise that I had to start watching, because and it's so hard to describe, and I'm not going to do her nearly enough credit, but I don't know, like there's so much joy in the way she plays. And she's into it, but then she'll look at, I think it's you, because it's hard to tell, but she's looking, I think she was on your right.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
She'll look at you or other player characters with like this twinkle in her eye. And that's what the main note for her is the twinkle in her eye. And it's so hard to describe. There's like a certain je ne sais quoi to like the way she she plays and interacts and acts and does all that stuff. But it's so fun loving and so joyous to watch that I was just like, I can't just listen to this. Once I saw it.
Yeah. The joy of watching Louise play like that was the fact that she took the source material bulletproof seriously. Absolutely, like she is a huge fan of Necromunda. She used to work for Specialty Game Studios, Special Design Studio and stuff like that. So she is a big, like she is 100% on it. Like she knows the world, she knows the lore, she knows all of it.
Wow.
So it was awesome having someone that not only like had that knowledge and had like a healthy respect for it, but also the joy to just play and be ridiculous inside of it. And I think that was the big thing, is that it really more than anything, I didn't, as a big fan of the lore and the setting of Warhammer 40k, I didn't want to do something that then took the crap out of it and like insulted it or anything along those lines. But it's fun. We're here to have fun in the grim dark and enjoy it. And yeah, there's multiple times, and from episode 3, a ball starts rolling between Louise and Jam that just pretty much continues for the rest of the season.
Okay.
And regularly it absolutely born of the two of them just being willing to like play and explore inside of that space. And yeah, cool. Louise is hilarious because she absolutely sat into violent ganger, but then as the season progressed and she's like, I've got a job to do, it was like, okay, I've got a job to do, but how does my ganger do this job? And that was just rad. It was so awesome.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that. Like, everyone's fantastic. Obviously, like, honestly, truly, everyone is fantastic. But Louise is the reason I had to watch it. There's like this thing, like she'll look at you and she'll just be like, sometimes it's like, are you taking the piss right now? Or sometimes it's just like, you guys get what I'm going? Or like, sometimes it's just fun, but it's hard to describe. So much fun. Okay.
Yeah.
I really, and like, honestly, she has the least amount of notes, but like, I knew I wasn't going to do her justice.
It's a very hard character to discuss. And it's just because it's just like joy and chaos and planning all coming in together. It's great.
But it's like she really embodies that too. Like, I mean, I like you already said about the lore. I'm trying not to like go on too much. Oh, by the way, Matthew, we weren't talking about Radikar. There's a female character with like a long flowing dress.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it right now.
I think it's like Skyla or Skrilla, something like. I could have anyway.
Skinmilidubula. That's probably what it is. Almost definitely, that's what it is. That's what they name all their stuff these days.
Oh man, that sounded like I thought you had it there.
I felt close, and then I felt like I got a lot further away from it.
I think so.
And that was kind of how that went. Hold on, give me that. Give me that.
And what's crazy is I said it to you. I remembered at the time, but sometimes those things just fall out of my brain. She's not a mini that I actually own.
Lady Annika, the
Annika. Oh man, yeah. I could have sworn it started with an S, and that's where I went. Yeah, Matthew has it in the chat. They're on a delay, so you definitely, beat us. You definitely beat us on the actual thing. Yeah.
Keith is pointing out that ensure that someone has a Radikar model wearing a long flowing dress, and maybe that's season 2. We'll make her her character dummy thick and with a beard in a long flowing dress and a wolf outfit and a wolf's head on the shoulder. That seems like it. Yeah.
Okay, so back to Greg for a moment.
Yeah, for sure.
His character is a tech priest, and something that I first noticed with Greg that I noticed with everyone was their commitment to being like, they weren't worried about like power level or gaminess or whatever. Like it just, and that helps the game flow so well. And there's more of a commitment to the world and describing like being in character and whatnot. And I first noticed that with him when he's first walking out, all
Yeah.
slowly and whatever, and
Yeah.
and his pet Ginger, is just like, and it's just like, man, like you could tell they're not min-maxing these guys at all. It's just all about the world and bringing it to life.
The other thing I think that let all 4 of the players do was explore when things didn't work. Because I think the problem is, like, say you have your rogue, right, in a regular D&D game. And I know this because I've been this. And it's like, you're like, I've specialized to pick locks and unlock doors and do all of this. And I've got like a +7 or something. And so you get to a door and you try to unlock it and you fail. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I try again. Like I don't, like, what's that? When everyone is like leaning very heavily into playing their character and what they really like in that regard, it meant that, like, say they came up to an obstacle, every time they came up to an obstacle and whatever they tried, say first time, didn't work, they had no end of options that they wanted to explore next to get around it. Right. And so we ended up having some, and I'm a big fan of in D&D and RPGs and anything like that, like, let people do the cool thing, even if you need to stop for 30 seconds to work out how to adapt to that fucking up your plans. Right. Like if you're just like, okay, cool, you want to try, I'm like, and it happened multiple times across the series where I was like, I in fact, episode 3, there's a, not to give away like a story for anyone who might decide to watch it.
Don't give away anything, Dan. I'll be very mad.
There is, all I will say is that there is a party. There is a party in episode 3. Okay. The execution of which, or just the fact that it happened, it was absurd to me and just came out of nowhere. And the second that it came out of the player's mouth who wanted to do it, I was like, absolutely you can. Yes. And like immediately I'm like, all right, we let this happen. And gameplay wise, we actually like every like 30 to 45 minutes, we'd take a break so that everyone could like go to the washroom, have a sip of water, that kind of thing. That was one of those minutes where I was like, we kind of hit a point. I was like, great. I was like, what the God, this absolutely twists up a bunch of my plans. But I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I can't get in the way of that. And awesome. that absolutely came from people not trying to min-max and figure out the way to do things best. They were just trying to do the way to do things that was their way, that made them happy, that sparked joy for them. And it was super, super cool.
Do you think it would add to the experience to know which character does that in episode 3 that you're referring to? Or do you think we should just watch it?
I truly, the thing is, the moment I'm talking about, I will absolutely tell you.
Okay.
It was born from Peachy. However, throughout the course of episode 3, Louise and Jam do an entirely different thing that entirely is born out of 2 people just in their characters making decisions that also I was like, cool, I don't know how I make this into the thing, but I'm gonna. And Greg also does an entirely different thing that I was like, I would never have seen this coming. So as much as it's like that one example was for sure Peachy, all of them are constantly doing it. And it made it a joy to run, but it also made it an absolute nightmare to do. Like if it was a regular D&D campaign and I had a week between sessions to prepare, very different story. When it was, when we were shooting it all in the space of a very short space of time, it definitely put some pressure on, but it was a lot of fun.
That's so awesome. Quickly back to the no flying thing.
Yeah.
There was a moment. So the very first time I ever played an RPG was Dungeons and Dragons, and I was playing a barbarian. And it was my very first critical role. I was playing a barbarian. We were lost in like this hedge maze in town kind of deal, and we couldn't figure out where to go or like what direction we were trying to get. And I was playing this big boisterous barbarian, and then I was just like, I know, I'll throw the. I think she was a fairy or something, or no, maybe not. Maybe she was like a hobbit or a halfling or something like that, and something small. And I was like, I'll just throw you up in the air, and then you can see,
Makes
then
sense.
I rolled a
Yeah.
nat 20, but that's what I, like what I wanted to touch on when, because if one of us could fly, if they were a fairy or something like that could just fly.
That takes that moment away from you.
Yeah, it just takes that away, and then there's no creative thinking or anything that goes into that. It's just like, okay, could you just like fly up and tell us which way to go? It's almost kind of boring. It's almost the opposite of that experience, right?
And there's also, I would say, throughout the whole story as well, there are multiple moments where the players either rolling poorly or well meant that they got less or more information as to what was going on in the
For
story,
sure.
which then let them make more or less educated decisions. And so
You do such a great job of describing that. That's one of the things that I meant to say about you being a DM is like you go in there and it's like you describe things in so much detail. It's like you knew what they were going to roll and had prepared it ahead of time, and you obviously haven't. But like when actually I can't spoil it, but Jamila rolls something that makes her character act differently than she normally would in episode 2.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is what you're seeing and this is what you're thinking. And then she kept rolling it, and that became kind of funny for me at least.
Because it meant that I in episode 2, it meant that our sorcerer, the thing you're talking about, charged off in front of everybody else. And the thing was, that was credit to Jam. All I did was I gave her the gameplay effect.
Yes.
And it was her choice to then take it, and she just absolutely went with it. And it was genuinely disturbing for some of the other players who were like, "Oh, you were the nice one."
That was horrifying.
Real quick.
Yeah, I won't say anything, but when she holds her hand up to that guy.
Yeah, bad times. Stupid
and then
bad
your
times.
description was so good.
Yeah,
and then
I got quite carried away, maybe.
The one thing that I can't, I don't want to ruin anything at all. Okay, after she holds her hand up to him, though, right? And that thing happens. Yeah. Can he see after that?
Yes. So
he
could. A big thing with a bit. Yeah. So, well,
okay.
I think, I'm not sure. I think that character
he couldn't see, and then he could see, and then she
that,
held her hand up, and something happened.
The thing when she held her hand up, the descriptor at that point was flavor.
And
that, I think
that's what I thought.
That's a really.
That's what I wanted to know. It is exactly what I wanted to know.
A really, I would say, tricky thing in D&D is that it's a lot of fun to call your shots. You know, to say like, and I try to stab him in the head, and I try to set him on fire, and I do all of that. But that's your fun flavor text that comes around from rolling dice. In the same way of like playing Warhammer. If you're like, my Nagash charges in and he's going to stab your little goblins in the face, Nagash can either absolutely cut their heads off and kill 24 of them in a single round of combat, or he can flub all of his attacks and miss. Yeah. So it's
and
it's
never
rad.
In between. It's not allowed.
It's and I think that's what I really like about playing with D&D and things like that, is that you can absolutely make those calls and have those descriptions, but ultimately like things still work out the way they work out. Now I will say, referring to injuries that involve severe and ongoing damage, that is something that happens in our show. But not.
That's like
not
a Necromunda kind of sounding Mordheim-y.
So this was actually a gameplay thing that I brought in from, and
you bring it up in episode 1, I think.
I think, and I think Keith, you mentioned you'd love to see someone to do like Soulbound. You mentioned in the chat a while ago, like someone to do a Soulbound RPG without being like shitty about the fact that it's not AoS. And a lot of people have asked why we chose D&D. We're actually, enough people have asked what they're like, why didn't you choose Wrath and Glory or Imperial Maledictum and things? And there's a big long story behind it, which is not anything doomy or gloomy, and is mostly just being that the 5 of us were the most fluent in D&D is the true answer.
That's fair.
I play Wrath and Glory. I play all of those. And
we played it together.
We're actually going to do a full video explaining it, but we actually combine a lot of those systems in small elements. And like for us, one thing that I've always been disappointed by in D&D is the idea of when players get knocked down, get reduced to 0 hit points, and then they just make death saving throws 3 times, and either they die or they survive. And that's fun and tense, but the players can't do anything for that time. What what I brought into our game and what we did with the players that actually had them pulling out their backup characters quite a few times during the show, is we brought it over from a game called Vast Grim, which I'm a very big fan of, and it's where a character is reduced to 0 hit points. You roll a d4, and there's basically an outcome. So there's any time a character is reduced to 0 hit points, there's a 25% chance that they just die immediately. There's no anything else, and then other than that, you can cop very serious wounds that last with you for the rest of the campaign. So so that's why, and I think that became really apparent for our players when they got to their second combat, because something happened. We'll just leave it at that. That's in an episode coming up. Something happened, and suddenly, usually when you play an RPG, the healer is like this weird mixed thing. Suddenly there was a terrified tension to keeping people healed, because the idea that like one rough round of combat could put someone down meant the end of their character immediately. And it just brought a really like a great tension to all of it. And it made healing and managing, like keeping people alive, a lot of fun. And so Greg definitely had his hands full in a couple of times there.
It sounds more Warhammer-y that way. Definitely. It also sounds, it kind of reminds me of the Warhammer Fantasy RPG, where like most characters died. Like most of them die. Like you don't normally make it very far at all. But yeah, okay. Let me... Keith says it's fun watching an excited fan gushing over the thing they enjoy. Just try not to get spoiled. Yeah.
Well, so the hard thing for me is that at the moment, my mind is editing away on episodes 5 and 6. So I'm a couple of episodes ahead. Right. I'm madly working there. And meanwhile, episode 3 has just come out. Episode 4 is up. The premiere is set on YouTube now for next week. So it's like I'm weirdly dragged between time, and I don't know what anyone has seen at any point in time.
Well, I've only seen episodes 1 and 2, so like that's even further back for you. Yeah. But I don't know how much time does it take you to edit per episode?
Depends on the episode, but it's a lot. It's a very, very involved thing. It takes
usually like the ratio they say is like how much time it takes to film times 5 is what, like, obviously that's a crazy, like, it totally depends on the thing, but like, that's something that like my cousin told me cause he edits video professionally. And then he was like, usually that's what we estimate it for, but I don't know. I don't even know how long did it take you usually to film an episode?
The filming was very efficient. I will say, like
it looked like it.
Editing is very labor intensive. Filming was very efficient because we could effectively just kind of set it up. But the way we set it up was knowing that would allow us flexibility in the edit to cut it together like a TV show. But that would then create a lot of work doing that. But I
love when you do the two different faces to get reactions at the same time.
Especially when you've got two players talking together from either sides of the table or something like that. True. Like you want to be able to see those two people in that conversation, or you want to, if for instance, I'm describing something about, like, regularly what happens is our characters, 2 of them have much more experience as members of the Inquisition. And so I'll be describing things for those 2 characters. And so cut to them, because it doesn't fucking matter what I'm saying. I'm just telling the words. They're the people that are interesting in that situation. Fair. Same way that regularly for like, the 2 characters who are newer to the whole world of hunting heretics, describing things to them and then getting their reactions as they go work through it is a lot more fun that way too.
That's true as well. Okay, before I forget, so I'll go to Jamila.
Yeah.
Jamila is like truly in her character. Like, again, I can't give away too much, but when she gets mad, like not forget Ginger. Like, obviously Ginger is the most important thing.
Obviously the most important thing in the entire campaign. Yes.
Yeah. But like, even when it's not that, even when it's not Ginger, the looks she gives, like, it looks like she's really actually mad or really actually X. And like, man, it's my hat's off to her. again, it's like Louise. It's a very hard to describe. But yeah, like, and my favorite moment so far is with her character. And we're only in 2 episodes. Obviously, one is the thing that I talked about with the hand. That part was awesome. But the backstory in episode 1. Yeah. And by the way, like, you designed that so well. Like, did Jamila know about Peachy's and Peachy know about Louise's? Like, did everyone know the backstory of each other's character, or were they?
No. So
right.
So going into it, I had a rough idea of the story, and knew, like, you know, what it was, the point of it. It was called Heretic Hunt. It was about hunting a heretic. And then I spoke to each of the players and was like, let's talk about what you would like to play. And, you know, there were some stipulations. I was like, look, one thing I really don't want is a Space Marine.
Yeah.
And I was also like, I don't want, another thing, like, I was like, I don't want an active guardsman. Like, I want our people to be human and very, very understandable. Because for me, that's the interest in, like, the cosmopolitan life in Warhammer 40K. Is like, you're just a guy. You're just a regular person. And then you're in your little hive city living your best life. Meanwhile, somewhere billions of light years away, you've got, like, the concept of a Space Marine to 99% of humanity is myth, right? Like, if you're thinking in the 40K universe, the most they probably see Space Marines are massive statues that have been there since the days of the heresy somewhere in their city. So then, understandably, that's why it's like seeing a Space Marine is a bowel loosening experience. So I didn't want Space Marines. I was like, if we were looking at a guardsman, I'd like them to be like maybe a retiree, someone who's older, or as we ended up with, Peachy was like, Peachy's vibe was, he was like, so I want to play, because the joke is that the Planetary Defense Force is the people who couldn't become guardsmen became Planetary Defense Force members. And so he was like, I would like to play a PDF trooper who is absolutely, you know, nepotism hire, all of that jazz.
We can't talk about him yet. We have to.
Not yet. We'll talk about him. We're talking about Jam at the moment.
We're talking about Jam, yeah.
So everyone, we basically went through and spoke about what people wanted to play, and we ended up with a really nice balance of what people were interested in, which absolutely rocked. Jam was very drawn to the concept of playing a psyker. And so we were kind of going through a lot of different ideas of what that could be, whether it was a member of, like, a sanctioned psyker, a member of the astropath, you know, an astropath, a navigator, a lot of different things. And then what we kind of ended up settling on was we looked at, took inspiration from a lot of the psychers in, say, Dan Abnett's work, like the Inquisitor series and things like that, Eisenhorn, Ravener, and the idea that like mid to low level psychers are regularly kind of taken by Inquisitors and almost like shielded from the law as they're trained up, but they're used in more, rather than being like a battle psyker, they specialize in something and they're used in that. And so that was where we went. And the idea that her character, because she was a psyker, had been an outcast for a long time, led to Jam found this wonderful discovery where she was like, I reckon she's a con woman. Like, she's been surviving. Ooh. She's been surviving before she was found for the Inquisition by
we get a taste of that in episode 1. Yeah.
And that's why like, she's so quick to put on other people's clothes, all throughout the series. And
so much of that is making more sense now. Okay.
So so that
there's a possibility that I missed something that was, like, plainly explained in the first episode where I was listening and kind of painting and you know what I mean?
It comes up briefly, but then it's retouched on over the course of the next few episodes. But yeah, so that was it. I will say one thing that was rad with Jam. First of all, she I feel like what you're talking about, like someone who got really angry at things not going her way was awesome. Because if you don't have that, you don't have tension of, like, that thing of, like, something goes
real tension.
Well, like, say something goes wrong and everyone immediately goes, okay, right, let's do this. Then you're like, you're like, okay, well then there wasn't any stakes for it. But having some like Jam like getting and also regularly getting mad at NPCs and other characters for not doing what she wanted. It was great. I will say the big thing that's great.
It was like the opposite of Louise, where Louise is like super impressed by Earl Grey at one moment, and then she's like, come on, guys, like
Louise.
get it
Louise
together.
Louise. A great example is in episode 2. Yeah. Something bad, like the enemies that they're facing, something bad happens to them, and she's like, "Oh no, I always feel sorry for them." And then one of them hurts her, and just like, "I will kill you and your family. I want more of you so I can kill them as well." Yeah. Whereas I feel like we had like the goldfish response and then the long smoldering vengeance response. I think the cool thing is that all of our characters had like different character arcs. Some of them came to a head faster. Some of them
I haven't seen that yet, obviously.
No, and I'm talking about it. It's over the course of the whole series. Some of them come to a head later in the season. But I would say the really cool thing for Jam playing a diva is the concept of like that character had been working with the Inquisition as an agent for quite some time. So
she's got a deeper backstory with the actual Inquisitor.
Yeah, and it meant that this was intentional in when we created those backstories, was that some people are newer to being inquisitorial agents, and so it's more of a discovery and they're kind of thrown into the fire. For others, the pressure of success was greater. And I think Jam did a really good job of embracing that fish out of water aspect that starts off in kind of episode 2 and runs until like for a little bit of trying to fill a gap, which again, not giving any spoilers, there's a gap left in the team after the first episode, and it's quite cool watching that.
And so that gap, I think I know what you're talking about, but I thought that gap was going to become like, I didn't think it was going to be possible. How can I say this? The gap is, I thought it was planned, but I don't know, like at least in episode 2, there isn't like, maybe it's something else too, but like, oh, I see like what you mean. Okay. But like, I thought that gap was going to be more succinct and sharper. Does that make sense what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, have a faster conclusion is what you're saying.
Yeah. I thought that was planned too.
So that gap wasn't bulletproof. The first episode really for me was the kind of the middle of the spider's web. I had a ton of different plans depending on how the characters first interacted and acted, because I think the big thing was that we didn't have a chance to play like a practice game together because our filming schedule was quite tight. We only had kind of like a week together to get everything sorted, including like the combat camera footage.
So
and
how
everything
many
like
things
that.
are you doing a game?
I think we did we sat at around like 1 a day. There was a couple of episodes where the decisions made them run longer, so we'd shoot effectively like what would be one episode broken up into 2 over the course of a day.
I see.
But that first episode was very much could have played out in a variety of different ways than how it did. And the gap, the spoiler gap that we're talking about. Yeah.
Because you could tell some of that is planned out by the way it initiates.
That was planned based on nothing happening that would stop it from happening, if that makes sense. So I would say
interesting.
I would say the way to look at it is that
so it could have not happened then.
Correct. That
really?
It also could have been worse. So it was.
Yeah, it looked like it. I thought it was planned to be way worse.
It was planned. I would say like the kind of, if you go through the sequence for my planning of it, the sequence of events in the episode, that was like a 75% chance of happening. But there were things that I was absolutely like
the way it happened too.
Yeah.
Really?
There were a couple of different options.
Okay.
But the thing is, either way, they were going to have to take charge. It was just about the course of action that led to it, and giving them a storyline place where the players could be the ones that were responsible for their own agency. Right. That gap not being a more immediately resolved issue was entirely the player's agency, and the fact that they decided not to give up on give up on love, I guess, might be the best way to put that.
I really hope, I want to see, now I'm extra excited for episode 3. Okay. Yeah. Peachy.
Yes.
We have to talk about Peachy. Peachy's character is the most immediately obviously funny. Like Earl Grey, right?
Yeah.
Like his name is, sorry, please.
Earl Grey of the House d'Agile. Like just absolutely just great.
It's so silly and I love it. Like it's right up my alley.
And he's not Earl as is not a title. Earl is his name.
Earl is his name.
Just all of this. Just he immediately like when we were talking about it, he was like, so you know the Ventrilian nobles? I'm like, Peachy, not only do I know the Ventrilian nobles, I know you love them. You've converted a bunch of them. So we kind of like, there was a lot of inspiration drawn from that.
So he was going to be a noble, like he was going to be a Ventrilian noble or however it's pronounced.
Yeah. So initially when we spoke about it, and he was like, admittedly was like, look, I don't need to play this character. Like I just, I'll play. He was very excited to truly play anything, but he was like, I mean, I don't mind it though. I'd love to. And I was like, Peachy, if you want to be a nepotism hire PDF trooper, you can absolutely be that. And it was beautiful. And the other thing I will say is that Peachy sticks to his character, as hilarious as it is, with a lot of truth as the show goes along. And it's not like episode 3, you'll see some stuff from him as well, where it's not just like he's doing things that are like one liner, like waka waka, hey, like that was you genuinely taking a lot of character stuff into that. And I mean, also, Peachy gets dark as the series goes along. Really? He's got some character growth in him. So
I like it, because there's a moment in episode 2 as well where he overperforms, for lack of a better thing.
Yeah.
And you can see that, like exactly what you're talking about in that moment. He's just kind of like, and then he even describes like sort of what he's feeling in that moment.
Peachy was a lot of fun. Truly, genuinely, I think the best thing was watching how well the 4 of them bounced off of each other, because they all would find episode 3 in particular, Peachy and Greg, Gamma and Earl start to work together more, which also leads to a bit of a rivalry between them. And that's kind of episode 3 leading into episode 4. And that was entirely just, we had 4 spectacular players who bounced off each other really well,
but give each other like time to do their own thing, to be in the spotlight. No one steps over each other, and I thought that was so impressive. And it's not something you can do online. You actually need to be in the same room together because of the
very much
the delay.
The thing that I actually had to get quite good at doing was being really clear to them because they all wanted to help each other. Right. So no one was ever trying, I felt, and it was spectacular, like no one was ever trying to steal anyone else's thunder. Like, there was this beautiful moment where Greg was going off and doing something, and this is in a different episode, so I'm not going to give anything away, but Gamma was doing something, and Adiva and Piper had just been off doing something else. And then while this moment was happening with Gamma, the 2 of them were like, can we just come up and stand like really tough behind him and just aggressively stare? And I was like, no, because you're doing this. And they're like, all right, of course, yeah, we're over here. But at no point did they want to come and take the moment from Gamma, take the moment from Greg. They were just like, this is awesome. How can we give him more to play with? And how can we do that? And it was really cool watching that, because it wasn't people trying to steal or do anything. It was everyone was having so much fun together and wanting to give each other more.
Yeah. And like Greg and Jamila are the only two professional actors, right? Technically?
Yes. Yeah. So Greg is actor and voiceover artist, and Jam is an actor as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Peachy and Louise, like, it's like you guys all seem like you've been doing this forever. Oh, by the way, I forgot to put the link to OddVoid in the description ahead of time. I'm so sorry, Dan. It's in there now.
Right.
It's in there
That's
now.
fine.
Please check and make sure it's in there now and it's working. I click save, so it should be there. I put it like above where I normally would.
Oh yeah,
but,
look at it. There it is. That's great.
okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
But I should have said that at the beginning, and it should have been
Yeah.
at the beginning, but now it is, and so
Fine.
yeah.
Fine.
So you guys have to subscribe. It's so good. Like, you know, the only thing that you did poorly in this whole thing that I've discovered, Dan, is you released it on the same day as Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 7. That was
I'm
a
very
very
sorry about
hard
that.
decision. That was a very hard decision I had to make.
It's so tough. Unfortunately, the marketing department really dropped the ball on that one. And
Yeah, they didn't do the research.
that's it. They went through. They looked at a lot of other things, but they dropped it. They shit the bed.
The funny thing is they mention Warhammer 40K in the newest book.
Right.
They actually allude to it. And so I was just like,
Right.
this is almost all feels connected and planned in some kind of weird way.
Wicked.
But it's so good. You know, I know you had some tech issues and whatnot. I would never have known unless you had told me about it. It's so awesome. Okay. One second. Let me pull up my notes.
No, go for it.
Peachy is hilarious. Oh, the phone call with his dad. I think you mentioned that. But
Yeah,
God
that
dang
came
it.
out of nowhere.
That was so funny.
But so this was the thing though, that first episode, I could have gone either way.
Oh, is
because
that the first one?
The phone call with his dad is episode 1.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think I can't.
I think you're right, but
I'm losing it now. But the
Yeah.
thing was, like, a lot of those were. So there was a very rough idea of how we would introduce the characters, but it wasn't scripted or planned or anything like that. I just knew their character backstories, and then I was like, okay, well, I've kind of done an introduction for them where we started, like you pointed out, like rather than, and this was a very intentional choice because I also don't like it when a show I'm watching starts and it's like, and now here's 20 minutes where you learn about this person, and now here's this.
That's what I'm saying.
I really wanted to do show don't tell. So like rather than being like take 20 minutes to explain your character, I was like, this is happening and your character is in. What does your character do inside of it? And I feel like a really good example is Greg when he comes in as Gamma. The first thing he does is kind of like assess things, and he's talking to people and he's not actually doing anything because he's like, well, no one's told me what to do and I'm waiting for instructions, please.
Oh, that was so good. I forgot about that.
And like that moment, that was, again, just improvised by Greg. But in that moment, you learned so much more about his character from how he behaved in a combat situation than you would if he had spent 20 minutes explaining it. So those moments where we got to learn more about the characters was absolutely led by the players. And I just had to go with it. My God, that one in particular was very, very challenging because Peachy just was so funny.
Oh,
so fast.
I see. I thought you meant with Greg's character.
Yeah, they were, but all of them doing their having their moments was a massive. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. But Peachy's phone call. Oof.
Oh man, it's so good. It's so funny. It reminded me of what's his name? Andy's character from The Office when he's interacting with his own father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's all about Walter Jr. or whatever. And like,
very much daddy
such
issues.
A disappointment.
Which the thing was, like daddy issues wasn't something we discussed about like previously.
Oh,
Peachy
really?
started saying like daddy and father, and it became a character trait almost immediately. And we were like, this is real now. This is it.
It fits perfectly though.
It did. Oh yeah. It was great. It was great.
Oh,
Became became a very strong running theme for him, which was awesome.
Oh man, it's so good. Actually, when you said that, like, the character introduction that you thought was so strong, I thought you were actually going to say Jamila's character.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hers first.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Adiva's our first, yeah.
Maybe it was because it was first, or maybe it was just because, but that was the one that, like, I remember the best for that. I remember that one, and I watched that one day one, and then I watched episode 2, way after, because I wanted to watch it. And so I think episode 3 I'll probably watch tomorrow, assuming that there's time and whatnot. But oh man, yeah. So I was conflating the two, because there's a moment where Piper recalls knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the backstories happen kind of pretty quick after that, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm a little confused. I don't remember hers as well, but oh man, they're all so good. Okay, I can't remember if there's anything else. I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting, which is annoying, but
I mean, look, there's still 5 episodes still to come. Fuck me, rigid. God, there's still 5.
Yeah. Still 5 whole, but we get to enjoy them.
Yeah,
we don't have to slave away.
Oh, I enjoy them as well. So last night I did the final. So before the episodes go up, final sign off goes through myself doing the edit and Jam, who is producing the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
So the kind of final edit sign offs go through the two of us, and it was just great watching episode 4 again and being reminded of just how. I say it's great because and this was entirely led by the players. The theme of the show, like the episodes feel like they have themes, and episode 3 has a certain theme. Episode 4 starts to get a little bit more intense and a little bit darker. And that's kind of, it's great. It's just very well put together. So yeah, it was fun to go back to.
So how familiar, so I know how familiar you are with the 40K lore, insanely. You know more about it than anyone I know in real life.
That's probably fair. Yeah, my brain's broken.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, but like you're really into, what do you call it? Like you're always talking about the Gods Go series.
I love, yeah. Oh, that lore is my happy place. That's where I live.
Me too. I'm more on the fantasy side of things.
For some reason.
And even then it's only particular stuff too. Like I'm Wood Elves, like I don't know why I led with Wood Elves. Like I don't know that, but like Skaven, obviously, like I've read everything that's ever come out with Skaven as a POV. I
would say for me, the game of Age of Sigmar and like fantasy settings and the design of those hit me, and that's like I don't feel like I necessarily want to play Warhammer 40K, but the setting and the lore of Warhammer 40K, for me, its hooks are in deeper.
Interesting.
So very much it was nice because there was a lot of.
But I know you as an AoS guy. Like,
yeah, and
really.
that's what I'm saying. You think about how much of my gray matter is taken up with AoS, and then like, at least that is balanced between like playing war dollies, painting and building war dollies, and lore. Like there's a trifecta in there. When it comes to 40K, it's basically just lore. Like it's just that kind of element, which was why it was super fun to be able to do this and put that into story and practice.
Wow.
You were asking something about how much like game knowledge,
right?
Or lore
Yes,
knowledge or something?
That is. So I know how much you know, and I know Peachy must know a lot. Just being working for GW for so long, I'm assuming. And you mentioned about Louise earlier.
Yeah.
And obviously, Greg must know a certain amount just from doing voices and doing different things like that. But the one person I don't know about is Jamila. How?
Yeah. So Jam. So I would say like of the players, Jam is absolutely the newest to 40K. Like only having.
It makes sense.
I would think she's like only a year and a half, 2 years in there. So
Okay.
so
That's a good
familiar, but
Yeah.
not to the level of obsession, which was honestly really nice because it meant that there were things and elements that she brings up and story moments that she creates for us that none of us with our maybe adherence to what exists could.
Right.
You know, and honestly, I think that's where her playing the psyker and her character being a con woman and a lot of those things, it meant that it wasn't just like, think about how people would play a psyker in 40K, like what kind of a person that would be. That they would be a tortured soul, they'd be XYZ, they'd be all of these different things. And then Jam came along, and the first moment with her character is that she's upset that the tail of her gown is getting muddy and mucky in the trash. And like all of these things like that, where you're like, that's right, that can exist in Warhammer. Just because we don't know it exists doesn't mean.
Well, it obviously does. And it's not like like if you're a ganger like Piper's character, you wouldn't know. Like you mentioned earlier, you wouldn't know anything about Space Marines. They would be mythological, bigger than life, like almost like hearsay, and like maybe they don't even exist, kind of thing. Like they allude to on that Warhammer Plus show with the Drukhari and whatnot. Yeah, it's like that, right? But it's like we wouldn't know about it, right? Yeah. So like all she needs to know is about her character, her background, and her world and community. Like that's actually all she needs to know.
That was actually the cool thing, because Jam had enough. She understood the world. She understood Warhammer probably as well as a number of 40K players understand the world of Warhammer. Like she had all of that. But then there were just times where clearly that deep lore that you know, like Peachy, Louise, myself, who have been doing it for a million years, we took for granted, her and Greg as well, would just do something that was completely out of left field for us, but it's like, that makes complete sense. That's right. Yeah, of course that happens. Like, there's no reason for that not to happen. Yeah, Keith being like, reminding you of a D&D rogue who had a perfectly normal and happy childhood, and his parents are alive and well. They're just an adventure doing a job. Like, that's I love all of my D&D characters to have full and healthy backstories. Because everybody's got a tortured one, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a good bit of like torture and emotional damage in the backstory of a character, gives them growth. But it was, I think, freeing for Jam and Greg in that regards. And Jam has a throwaway in episode 3, but just a line that she just tossed out there.
Okay.
Where, because her character class is an aberrant mind psyker, which has an ability to talk into people's brains. And the characters, this is not really giving anything away, they have a long rest where they're doing nothing. And so just out of nowhere, she was like, so as like a bonding activity, she kind of like psychically streamed into everyone's heads her favorite reality TV show, Next Top Hive Way or Under Hive Runway or something like that. Like that, it's just an offhanded joke that immediately you watch the lights go on for all of the rest of the party as they're like, yes. and it sticks for a while. Like but that beautiful thing of like reality TV exists in 40K. Absolutely it does.
Right.
Someone like myself could never do that.
Yeah, so true.
I could never say.
I wouldn't think of it.
I could never say that there is a reality TV show based on modeling held in the hive cities of Warhammer 40K. That would never happen. But for her, there was no reason for that not to exist. And it brings about like a beautiful sequence of events that lasts for a good chunk of the campaign. And just like, so I think that would be that. My biggest example is we had a great spread of lore knowledge across our players, a great spread of game knowledge, because I would say the other thing is Jam, compared to the other three, has played a staggering amount of D&D.
Oh, good.
And so she came up with some shit. I'm going to tell you that much. She came up with some shit. I'm trying to remember what episode it starts in, and it's not like gamey, messy stuff. It's like, this is fun. Can I do this fun thing? The rules permit this fun thing to be done.
Right. That's my favorite too.
Yeah.
That's
like
my favorite.
It wasn't game breaking stuff. It wasn't things that are like, fuck you, check out what I did. It was like, so by this and this can happen, right? Like, it was great.
By the way, I'm not shooting shade at anyone who is,
no.
because there's just different psychographic profiles. Yeah. I'm more of the silly and like, this would be fun, cool, narrative, character driven, or whatever, even maybe sometimes even poignant. But I'm, but there's nothing wrong with different strokes for different folks. I'm not throwing any shade at anyone. But
for telling a story on a show,
for telling a story, exactly, that's what you needed.
Gamey, broken stuff doesn't always translate well. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, because when we had a nice blend of background lore knowledge, we had a nice blend of skills and ability to manipulate rules to tell cool stories with. We also had like a really nice background of skills of how people approach, I guess, the play of it, because like you said, we had Greg and Jam, whose background is in performance and theater and film and acting. We had Peachy and Louise, whose background is like a strong, like big backgrounds in Warhammer, but in presenting and Warhammer TV and having their own YouTube channels and stuff. So
I didn't think about that.
So we had vastly different backgrounds, but the thing that was really telling is that all five of us were games people, and you can just tell. Like, there are people that like, we just like playing games. Right. And I think that was fundamentally it. It was like, we tell a story by playing a game, and it was awesome.
It was so good. Honestly, Jam is so good at being her character that you wouldn't know that she wasn't a lore nerd. And Peachy is, and Louise are so good at not stepping over each other, everyone having their moment, being in character, that you wouldn't think they weren't actors. You know what I mean? And Greg, God dang, Greg is just he's such a surprise for me, and like, oh my God, he's so good. He's doing it all. It's the same thing. Like, you wouldn't think he wasn't all these things, right?
The weirdest thing about the shoot with Greg, and my favorite thing, was that like, we'd be sitting around, we'd all be having lunch, and I'd be like, Greg, can you do the Horace voice and say, "I'm proud of you, son"? And like, just would be like, can you do the Red Gobbo wishing me Merry Christmas, please? Can I get Happy Birthday from an orc, Greg? And it was just great. He's so talented.
Sick. He's so, I mean, I haven't heard I've heard his other voices, but I don't realize that I have. Yeah. But it's like, it reminds me of like when Hank Azaria or one of the Simpsons actors would go on like Conan O'Brien, and then they would just suddenly all of a sudden they're Police Chief Wiggum, and then they just start talking like that, and then they go over to all these wild different characters, and it's really cool. That's so awesome. Okay, I had something else before. Oh man. Okay, is there anything that you want to say? Because like, I don't want to interrupt you, but there was something that I
just thank you to everyone who's already watched it, and thank you to everyone who does choose to watch it.
It's so good. It's like my favorite thing. Like my favorite new thing.
3 episodes are out, 5 episodes still to come, and then a whole second season if we can make a second season happen.
I sure hope so.
The only thing I would say is that there's no guarantee of characters in the second season.
Right. That's fair.
Because of the aforementioned brutality of the world of 40K.
Right.
And sometimes...
And that's good.
Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and sometimes bad things also happen to people that deserve bad things to happen to them.
So OddVoid It's youtube.com/@oddvoid show.
That's the one, yes.
ODDVOIDSHOW.
Yeah.
And OddVoid is the name of this world, or because Heretic Hunt is the name of this season, right?
Yeah, OddVoid is the I guess the
channel
production company. It's the company.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so it's all very much. It was the kind of thing where we were like, well, there's other stories we'd like to tell, some that are in the worlds of Warhammer, some that are out of the worlds of Warhammer. So the idea of having a catch-all for everything that's why OddVoid is the show. It's that big empty space that we shove stories into. And that's OddVoid, and then the show is Heretic Hunt.
I see. I wasn't sure. So is this an OddVoid takeover, or is this a Heretic Hunt takeover? Like maybe
it can be either. Like truly either. But honestly, it seems appropriate. Either the Inquisition takes over, or a weird space-time anomaly takes over. Both seem appropriate.
That reminds me. So she projected into their minds the
Hive Runway. Yes.
Hive Runway. So I wanted to I was thinking what I want projected is like Inquisitor Judy,
Oh
Inquisitor
my gosh,
Judith Shiloh.
yes. Judge Judy Inquisition. Amazing. And then there's just a couple of the Arbites, the police dudes with massive shotguns standing there waiting to pass judgment.
What's
Absolutely.
his name? Bird or whatever. Her bailiff. Is I think it's Bird. It's spelled like BURD or something weird like that.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's what I want now.
That's absolutely going to be stuff that ends up being like second season. I'm sure there's going to be people forcing us to do more
fingers crossed
reality TV content inside of Warhammer 40K. That sounds exactly what needs to happen. Yes.
Oh man. If anyone, by the way, I meant to say this at the very beginning. Does anyone have any questions for Dan before we let him fade into the background of absolute tiredness and puddle form before he turns into the what's the Otto's name, or the guy from Deep Space Nine?
Oh,
is it Otto?
I think so. Yeah, the blob guy.
Yeah, the blob guy. That's what I pictured you doing at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's the only thing is that'll happen, and then I have to go back to editing. So there are no breaks on the Premiere Pro train.
That's fair. It's I mean, if you need to take a week off, I know that you don't want to do that, but if you need to or something, like quality over quantity, and so far it's banging. Like seriously, like I couldn't. I watched all of that. I forget what it was called. Gray. Something or other.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I just couldn't get into most of them, and this is my new favorite thing since on YouTube. It's probably my new favorite thing since like I said, the best of the worst on Red Letter Media.
Yeah.
I watch all that stuff. I listen to Audible, but I've been listening to audiobooks for much longer than I've known about.
I'm glad. The goal was for it to be like watchable and digestible, and if somebody wanted to, like bingeable, rather than if you say you tried to binge RPG content from, not everyone, because there are a lot of people who do it very well, but a lot of people, like a binge would be 2 episodes in a day, and that would be a work day length of time.
Right.
And we really didn't want to do that. I think the big one for us was combat. We were like, if we can make combat fun. And that was the Gene Jocks. That was episode 2 for us, was the real challenge. And it was when I broke it down, I think in the edit, it was like 48 minutes for an entire combat, and the other 30 was bullshit that the players did before and after to try and get out of it and stuff, and all that jazz. So it was a lot of fun.
The one thing I'll say, so like, I started trying to do other things and whatnot. That's perfectly acceptable. But at some point, if you watch the first episode, if you haven't seen it already, when you're watching the first episode, watch Louise's face. Okay, it's very important.
Just
the joy and the twinkle. Like I got it.
Yeah.
People, let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. It's so hard to describe. Like everyone else, I feel it's very easy to point to. You know what I mean? But there's something there. Yeah.
Mischievous little twinkle.
Mischievous twinkle. Yeah. And the fun-loving twinkle. It's hard to describe. But yeah, if no one has any questions for Dan, we'll let him sink into a puddle. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. I know, obviously when you're in the thick of things, how busy it is.
My pleasure. It's fun to talk about the thing that I spend all day staring at. That's nice.
That's good.
I'm glad people are enjoying it.
Most definitely. I hope we get at least a second season. You'll also see Dan in the upcoming. Dan has been in you did a battle report a long time ago, back when we were editing.
Oh yeah.
Back when we were
Beast of Chaos
actually
existed.
doing work. Yeah, back when Beast of Chaos. Oh, sad violin noise.
Heartbreak.
But you will be in the upcoming
Saga
of Six Gamers campaign. So I'm very excited for that. I've been asking you since you came on the first time, like periodically, hey, can you do something soon? You're like, I'm going to be in England or I'm going to be in Australia or
I'm not a person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
or I'm on set or you're editing or whatever. Right.
Now the big one is I don't have a legal painted army because I can't make a legal army out of my Beast of Chaos, and they stop existing in June. And hopefully that's why Saga of Six is going to help me out. It's going to mean I'm going to have one.
It's all Darren's idea, and we'll have a takeover.
Cunning man.
Oh, it's such a great theme. Like
he's a hazard to my wallet. He's an absolute hazard to my wallet.
Yeah, indeed. So thank you so much for coming on, dude. It was a blast.
My pleasure.
Stick around after the thing is done. The dice will be back up probably tomorrow. If you want to just message me, if you want to because they really did sell quickly.
Yeah,
but it should be fine. Yeah, they're honestly my favorite dice still, and I'm hopefully the new ones come soon. More dice come.
People need dice.
They do.
How are you gonna play a game without dice?
They do, and they're way cheaper than GWs, and they look way better. No offense to anyone. Yeah. So anyway. Thank you so much to Dan, and thanks to everyone for hanging out. Check out OddVoid. It is so freaking awesome. I promise you won't regret it. We'll see you guys next. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.